Welcome to Turf Talk with Matt
and Casey.
This is episode 13 of Turf Talk. It is round 2 for the season 2022 that we are in. And we just wanted to talk to you. We're getting ready to come up to April. Yeah. And what are we going to see? What have we seen so far in the lawns? What services do we have? What services are in season right now? That's for fertilization, pest control, and kind of what weeds we're going to see and some other things.
So right now, Matt, we're in our round 1 applications. Temperatures this year have been quite a bit cooler than they were last year at this time. So the weed pressure is not as great as it was. This time last year, we were seeing a lot of dandelions. This year, I've not seen a dandelion yet. We're still seeing some henbit, some winter weeds that are kind of popping up. The ground temperatures are still cool. I've been monitoring that very closely. Our 5-day average right now is around 54 degrees. So we're approaching that crabgrass germination mark. Mm-hmm. We've gone above 55 degrees for small periods of time, a few times over the last couple of weeks. There may be a small amount of crabgrass germinating. Luckily, we've got most of the pre-emergent down. That's going to stop that crabgrass from coming up. We're going to do another round in round 2, which we're going to be starting sometime after the 1st of April. And that's going to help boost that chemical barrier, Matt, and keep that crabgrass from coming up. We'll have some dimension on hand, which is our crabgrass post-emergent, in case we need it. I don't suspect that we're going to.
Now, a lot of our customers that we carried over from last year to this year, are we seeing much crabgrass in their properties? And what about the wild violets and the creeping Charlie? Or what are we seeing? Because those are the three, weeds that everybody notices the most.
So the feedback that I am getting from our technicians on customers that we had last year, most of them are pretty much weed free. They might have a few spotty winter weeds that popped up. Now, wild violets and ground ivy, if you had those last year, depending on how many treatments you got with the Cool Power or the T-Zone, which is our weed control for those weeds, you may still have some lingering around. We're going to knock it out again this year. We're going to hit it with the T-Zone all the way up until we see 75 to 80 degree temperatures. Then I have to stop using that product because it will volatilize. So we're going to get another good hit on them this year in the spring. Once temperatures drop back down in the fall, we'll hit them again. Should be able to handle most of that.
And one thing that I recognize we get some customers asking about is, hey, we still have some weeds here and you guys have been treating. And one thing that I like to go back to is that it's all about consistency. Mm-hmm. How long have you been on a program to see this? Because we get the people who we get complaints from the most are typically people that came in later in the season and they didn't get all the treatments. So there's somewhat of a lack of consistency, and then they don't feel that we're doing a good job, but we really need 2 to 3 seasons to really turn a program around or a property around. And so we do have a little bit of an overlap on round 1 and round 2, when round one truly ends and when round 2 begins. And that's because if you come on late, our biggest selling time of the season is in April. Yeah. So we're going to have a ton of customers coming in April, but we still want to get that first round of pre-emergent down, because not only are you getting the pre-emergent, but you're also getting the fertilizer.
Correct.
And we know that every property needs this amount of fertilizer every year. So whether you come in round 1 or round 2 or round 3, it doesn't change the fact of how much fertilizer you actually need to feed the turf for that year.
The issue with that, Matt, is that we can't put down that whole 4 pounds or 4.5 pounds
at once
in 2 or 3 rounds of fertilization, because it would just burn a lawn up.
And that's why we really need the consistency of you being on a program, so then we can put out the right amount of fertilizer in each round, so we are being healthy stewards of the lawn and of your property.
Absolutely. It's a cumulative effect, Matt. Our weed control, I get a lot of questions about that. How does our weed control work? It's a contact killer. It does not prevent new weeds from coming up. The only preventative that we use is the pre-emergent for crabgrass. There is not a great preventative for broadleaf weeds. So the way we control weeds, we knock them down before they go to seed with the contact killer. Again, that's not going to prevent new weeds from germinating if their seeds are already in the lawn. But if we're knocking them down before they go to seed, we're preventing the amount of seeds that are in the lawn and viable to come up later. So we're eliminating the number of weeds possible to come up. And what we're doing is we're thinning those weeds out and creating space for grass to grow in. As long as that grass is thick, the best weed control you can have is a thick, healthy lawn. As long as you're watering properly, you're mowing at the right height, you're fertilizing, and you're keeping out the competition, that lawn's going to thicken up, it's going to get nice and healthy, and it's naturally going to prevent most weeds from coming up.
Yeah, if those weeds have nowhere to grow, if your yard is so thick, and the way that we achieve the thick yard is by constantly aerating and overseeding, because you may aerate and overseed this year, and then you may skip 5 years. Well, grass is no different than a human. Grass dies just like we have a life cycle.
Right.
The life cycle of grass will die, and then it will vanish. So we need to continuously replenish the lawn with new seed, and so that's how you continuously keep a thick lawn. And that thick lawn, if there is nowhere for those weeds to grow, like dandelions to grow, they won't come up because they can't breathe. They're suffocated out. So that is the ultimate weed control. And our goal always is we want to put as much weed control down as necessary, but as little as possible to reduce environmental effects.
Correct.
But we do want to provide a great product, a great lawn, because we know that a great lawn is great for your mental health. I tell people all the time, your yard is the smile of your house.
Absolutely.
It's the last thing you see when you leave in the morning to go to work, and it's the first thing that you see when you come home.
Yep.
If you've had a bad day at work and you have a great looking lawn, it's probably going to boost your mood before you walk inside.
Absolutely.
And could cure some of those maybe frustrations that you've had throughout the day. So let's talk about weed control now. So we've kind of talked about where we're going to be. We're kind of on that verge of, do we still use T-zone and Core Power, and what are we switching to once we can't use those products anymore?
Sure. So again, temperatures are still cool. Once we hit that 75-degree mark, T-zone is actually labeled for 85. I like to be a little cautious and stop using that around that 75-degree mark. That's the old school applicator in me. Once we hit that mark and we're in that stage where we have to switch over, we're going to switch over to Threesome. It's a great multi-purpose weed control product. It's not going to have such a great effect on things like wild violets and ground ivy, but dandelions, some of your chicory, things like that, it's going to knock those down. All your other broadleaf weeds, pretty much, it's going to knock those down with no problems.
Gotcha. And so, staying on the track of the fertilization and weed control, we've kind of talked about the fluctuations in temperature, and the temperatures are starting to rise. So the program is starting to change, going in around 2. How does all the rain? Is that beneficial for us? Is that
absolutely
counterintuitive for us? I know prodiamine has to be watered in, so this is super beneficial for the prodiamine. But what happens if we're putting it down? Put this weed control down, and an hour later it starts raining. Like, is that beneficial or not?
So the weed control can be affected by rain. Once the weed control is dried, though, it's set in. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's had enough time to absorb into the plant. That typically takes about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the humidity. As long as you don't see rain within that 15 to 30 minute window, your application should be just fine. Now, if there is an issue, you see weeds after we've come out and treated, we're glad to come out with that 100% guarantee. We'll spot spray some weeds for you and make sure we knock those down.
And so how can we tell if the weed control actually took effect?
So what you're going to see, Matt, and it really depends on temperatures, how long it takes you to see those. Cooler temperatures definitely slow the weed control down. Warmer temperatures speed it up. What you're going to notice, though, is after a period of time, the weeds are going to start to twist and curl. The leaves are going to start to fold in on themselves. and the plant is just going to look unhealthy. In a dandelion, on a 75-degree day, if you spray it with threesome, from the time that you spray it to the time that you finish spraying the rest of the lawn, you can come back and actually start to see some pigtailing in that dandelion's flower stem, and you can see the leaves starting to fold up. Clover is also the same way. You can spray clover, and by the time you finish the lawn that you're on, you can oftentimes come back and see those leaves starting to fold in on themselves.
Gotcha.
Because that's the weed control working. Now, on a cooler day like today, where we're seeing 55, 60-degree temperatures, it might take 2 to 3 days before you really start to see those effects take place.
Gotcha. And so if something like that happens, we're more than happy to come out and retreat. But we do have a waiting period that we like to wait to make sure that this is actually working or it's not. I mean, after one treatment, we don't want to put into your minds that after one treatment, you're not going to have any weeds, because that's not a thing. Because where those weeds were, once we kill them, you're going to have a bare spot. And we try to inform people that if you have a lot of weeds in your yard, when we start treating your yard is going to look worse.
It's going to thin out.
It's going to thin out. It's going to look worse. You're going to see bare patches typically in the lawn, and that's a good thing. That's giving us areas now that when we aerate and overseed, we can get seed growing in those areas. So we need those bare areas so that we can seed them in the future. So we want to make sure that the expectation is set correctly, that if you have a lot of weeds, your yard's probably going to look a little bit worse before we can make it better. And that's part of that 2 to 3 season turnaround.
Yeah, Matt, it really is a cumulative effect. Nothing that we do is going to give instant gratification. The only way to gain that instant gratification is to tear the whole lawn up and put down sod. It's timely, it's expensive, and even that is not going to be a lasting effect. It's going to give you that instant gratification, but over time you're going to need a program again to keep the weeds out, keep the grass healthy. So let's kind of switch from our fertilization and let's start talking about pest control. Sure.
We're getting ready to start the very beginning of our pest control. Tell us a little bit, what pest controls do we service and what are the benefits of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start all pest control probably the last week of March. We're going to start out with flea and tick and perimeter pest controls. We're going to also have our mosquito controls. And we're also looking at, in round 3, our surface insecticide applications. But going out the door, definitely you're going to get that perimeter pest control where we go 3 feet up, 3 feet out, all the way around the perimeter of the house. That's going to keep those creepy crawlies outside. Flea and tick spray, or the pet lover program, we're going to spray the entire lawn with a long-lasting insecticide that's going to keep fleas, ticks, and it will handle some other bugs off of the lawn, off of your dogs, off of your kids, and off of you.
Gotcha.
And then mosquito, that's new this year. We're going to fog your foliage with, it's a very neat backpack device that will allow us to kind of get up in the tree canopies, get down in your bushes, kind of blows things around, lets us treat all sides of the leaves, where the mosquitoes nest especially is under those leaves, under the awnings on your home, places like that. We're going to get a nice barrier down that's going to also last for about 30 days and keep most of those mosquitoes at bay. You should be able to go out in your outdoor living area mosquito free.
Gotcha. So that is a super exciting package that we're going to offer as the mosquito control. And we get a lot of questions about this, and rightfully so. It is a product that is going to kill pretty much anything it touches.
It is an insecticide, yes.
Yes, it's going to kill the mosquitoes, but yes, it can also have a negative effect and kill butterflies, and it can kill bees too. So we take that into account when we're at a person's property.
Absolutely.
The things that bees are attracted to the most are plants that are blooming and they're pollinators.
Yep.
So we've trained our team not to spray those. If
If
it's flowering and it's a pollinator and you see bees and butterflies around it, or even if you don't, we are trained not to spray those, because we know that if they come in contact, we will harm that population.
It's very likely, Matt, and we do want to protect those pollinators. They're very important. They're what
but we also want to get rid of the nuisance.
We do want to get rid of the nuisance.
Is the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do get a few questions about is will you spray my vegetable garden? The answer is
Absolutely
no.
not.
The answer is no, because that will get into, especially the number one problem is the tomato plant. Tomatoes plants will take in everything.
Everything.
And we don't want you eating this toxic chemical that we're putting on your property to get rid of these mosquitoes. So we don't spray anything that's pollinator, anything that's blooming, and any vegetable gardens. We'll totally stay away from those. So it's totally safe for you.
Absolutely.
Now what is interesting is this product is labeled safe. You can even use it inside buildings, in cafeterias, where food products are handled, because it does work against these nuisance, bugs. Once it's dried, it's fine. So it is safe to be around. It's safe to touch. It's safe to come in contact with.
Sure.
You just don't want it in a tomato when you're
Correct.
eating it. So that's something that's really great about the mosquito program. And the perimeter pest control, my wife, she just mentioned that, hey, when are they coming out? I see an ant. So that means it's time. It's time to start it, because we have all this rain, and when there's a lot of rain outside, what happens? All those bugs want to go inside where it's dry.
It's dry and warm.
And so we're starting to see that. So we will be out to do perimeter pest control here very shortly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about that. We've talked about the flea or the fertilization, the weed control, the pest control. Let's kind of go back to this the fertilization, weed control for a second.
Sure.
Diseases. Are we seeing any diseases, and have we seen any diseases so far this year?
I have not seen a whole lot of diseases, but I have seen some snow mold. We had a lot of snow that stuck around, especially on north-facing parts of the lawn. Maybe you had some leaves built up underneath there. The snow set on top of there. It didn't melt off very fast. So snow mold loves that kind of condition, and it will grow. And what it's going to do is anywhere that you see that compacted snow or that long-lasting snow, it's going to look very brown right now, Matt. It's going to look matted. It's going to be brown. Now, if you get down there and dig around like I did on the property that I was on the other day, you're going to see some life in there. There's going to be some green. It's not going to be very thick at first. Is that plant dead? No. The tops of it are damaged. The roots are still very much alive. The crown's very much alive. It just needs to warm up, get a little sunshine, a little food in it, and it's going to grow out. It could take 2 to 3 weeks before you see those areas really start to green up compared to the rest of the lawn. But they will eventually even out and fill back in.
Gotcha. And if you're watching this and you have any concerns, please give us a call. We're happy to take a look at it. Mm-hmm. If you have pictures, send them in. If we can't diagnose it through a picture, which 90% of the time we can, but if we can't diagnose that through the picture, we're happy to send somebody out to look at your property for you. That's one of the perks of working with us here at Green's Lawn Cares. We want to make sure that it wasn't something that we did.
Absolutely.
And if it was, we're going to fix it. And also be able to educate you on what this is, and is it going to grow out, or does this area of turf have to be replaced?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the very last thing before we let you guys go. You guys probably, if you're a current customer of ours, you should have gotten a letter in the mail by now, and you'll see a couple gift cards on them.
Yeah.
And so our referral program is wildly popular. We do get people from there all the time. Thank you to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Because you guys are the ones that pass those out. And they're gift cards that you can give to your family and friends, somebody just like yourself that cares about their lawn, has their own property, and they want to see a change. So if you give those gift cards to them, they will get $50 off of their treatment or their package. Plus, you will get a $25 Visa gift card in the mail from us. And we're happy to send out as many gift cards as you want. We actually had a couple people last year that paid for their entire fertilization program for the whole year based on referrals. So that could be easy for you if it comes up in conversation, or put it on Facebook, show a picture of it, and let your friends know that you have this team that works really hard and really cares about your property. And the last thing I want to finish off with is we got an email yesterday, and it was actually a compliment. And And the reason I say it like that is because it did have to do with our fuel surcharge. And as everybody knows, fuel is
Skyrocketing.
has skyrocketed. We didn't plan for it to be skyrocketed. We did plan for some form of a delta, plus or minus from where it was. But we do have to recoup some of that money. And the reason that we got this compliment is we only add this fuel surcharge if gas is over $4.25 a gallon. What we're seeing from a lot of the other competitors out there is our fuel surcharge is $5 per invoice.
Yes.
So if you have 6 visits, I mean, you're talking $30 a year. It's not that big of a deal. That's less than you going out to eat one time, But what a lot of the other companies are doing, they're just taking that $5 and they're adding it to your treatment price, and it's never going away.
Right.
So what we're doing is being very honest, transparent with you, and once that gas drops below $4.25, you won't see surcharges anymore.
Matt, I had a great question from a customer the other day about how we determine that when we are going to add that fuel surcharge and when we're going to take it away. I wanted to kind of go into that. As the operations manager, I collect receipts from the guys every time they buy fuel at the pump. And what we do is we take that receipt and we track it. And if they pay more than $4.25 at the pump that day, that's when we're going to add that fuel surcharge.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just wanted to be open and honest with you guys and as transparent as possible, because that's our brand, is being very transparent, educating, and getting everything out there and trying to over communicate with you.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to seeing you guys on the lawn. That's it for Turf Talk episode 13. All right, you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the lawn.
You stole my line. See you on the lawn.